Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining me. This is like an impromptu show which I'm doing today. As you can see, the title, a replay of an exclusive interview with Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica, and this was in 2015. Now, the reason why I'm doing this interview today, and I'm just going to take this opportunity to share this video as well, is that tomorrow the Prime Minister will be sworn in. But I do recall in 2015, and pardon me for a moment while I'm just pulling up something on my phone here, just to make sure that everything is playing okay. In 2015, I had an interview with Andrew Holness when he was opposition leader. This was before the last election, the previous election of 2016, where he was successful against Portia Simpson, and after he lost to Portia Simpson, when he actually called the election and when he was handed the baton from Bruce Golden. Okay, and if one can remember that during the whole Doodle saga. But I was watching the interview a couple of nights ago, and I was just watching it, and it was very interesting because one can actually reflect the past and looking at the present as a result of that interview. And I felt that it would be good to actually play it over again. It's on YouTube, it's on my channel. This was from 2015, and it was a good time because he was in London and he had this meeting there, and it was a very interesting occasion. And I said, let me actually watch this video with yourselves today, and just for your views as well, because we had an election recently in Jamaica on the 3rd of September. Sorry, yes, 3rd of September, 3rd of September, and they were successful, winning 49 seats to 14. However, we just understand again that a seat which it was believed it was held by the JLP went over to Mr. Luther Buchanan, I believe that's the name. So the JLP won another seat, so it's 15 to 48. And then Lisa Anna, which I understand, she recently won by 14 votes. We understand it's now 38 with the recount, and I believe there is a possibility of a magistrate count as well. But I'm glad that I have Ezekiel Thompson, because he was the one that was able to come with me to actually do that filming, yes, in 2015. I remember Sir Ezekiel. So I'm going to just get going, and there are different snippets of it. It's going to be two parts, actually. One is 17 minutes, one is 20 minutes. But the preview, which we sent around, was very interesting. So without further ado, let me play this. And at the same time, it would be great if you could also share this video as well as we go live.
Welcome to the SYLBOURNE Show. And with me today is the Honorable Andrew Holness, former Prime Minister, leader of the opposition, leader of the Jamaica Labour Party, member of Parliament for West Central St. Andrew. So, Andrew, tell me, how are things in Jamaica these days? Well, for me, politics is a calling. It's something that I feel that I was born to do. The second youngest member of Parliament at the time, Bruce Golding, holds the record at 24, and I was just a few months older than he was.
And how would you, as the new Prime Minister, if you win, seek to address that?
Jamaica now needs to fulfill its true potential as an economic powerhouse. Jamaica must make it a real mission to end poverty. It's the one that is good. If you're successful, you will win some unfaithful friends and some genuine enemies. Succeed anyway, right? If you're honest and sincere, people will deceive you, but honest and sincere anyway. All right, what you spend years creating, others could destroy overnight. Create anyway.
Okay, so that was a preview, a very interesting and friendly preview which we did, and I'm going to go straight into it and play the first part, and I was thinking to myself, if I interviewed Andrew Holness in 2015 when he was not the Prime Minister, then I'm wondering who should I interview from the Prime Minister, from the PNP side, uh, so that they can be the next Prime Minister. Maybe there is a possible positive jinx with the SYLBOURNE show where, and I always say this all the while, ladies and gentlemen, and if you follow me, you'll find out in my show I always say that I like to interview persons as they rise. I like to interview them as they rise, so I rise with them. So not I tend not to go for the person at the pinnacle of the heights of their success. I try to find that underdog, that person who is on the rise, so I will rise with them. And it's a wonderful principle. But let me just tell you something about Andrew Holness. Andrew Holness, born 22nd of July 1972, Jamaican politician, was being a Jamaican Prime Minister, and listen to this, since 3rd of March 2016, following the 2016 general election. Holness previously served as Prime Minister from October 2011 to January 5th, 2012. That is when he succeeded Bruce Golding as Prime Minister and decided to go to the polls in 29th of December general election in an attempt to get his own mandate. If you remember now, he lost that election and to the People's National Party led by Portia Simpson, with the PNP gaining 42 seats to the Jamaica's Labour Party 21. So when I met him, when we had this interview, this was in between that time, and then he was preparing to go to the polls in 2016. So have a watch of this part one of the interview. Thank you. Special episode of the show. In light of the recent elections in Jamaica, we are joined by Andrew Holness, who was with us in the UK last year. That's all coming up right now on the SYLBOURNE Show.
Want a hassle-free experience to buy, build or sell a property in the Caribbean? Perhaps you want a similar experience to deal with another type of property matter in this beautiful part of the world. Whatever your property matter in the Caribbean may be, Tropical Connections will ensure that your experience is one that you'll remember for all the right reasons.
Welcome to the show. This interview was held back due to the recent elections that have gone on in Jamaica, and we wanted to find the outcome of these elections before releasing this episode. Andrew Holness, welcome to the show, sir.
Thanks for having me, SYLBOURNE.
Well, we're in London, England, and not in Jamaica all the time, so we might have a little slight little twisting in the citation for your title.
Don't make too much of it.
Don't make too much of it. Fantastic. Well, sir, welcome again to the show, and welcome again to the UK, because earlier you were here, I think a few weeks ago, I saw you at the Kensington where you're speaking to the diaspora. A very exciting and charged atmosphere. You should have been there. But before I go any further, I want to just go straight into politics, because you're a politician. For the audience watching, can you give us a brief overview of your political career as a point of reference? Like, set the stage as we delve deeper into you, the man.
Well, for me, politics is a calling.
Yes.
It's something that I feel that I was born to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I see myself as the servant leader. I feel that I have a duty to serve my people,
yes,
serve my country. I feel that I am a part of a generation of Jamaicans
mm-hmm.
who would want to see Jamaica take its rightful place among
right.
the developed countries in the world.
Right.
We feel we have the resources and the potential to do it, but we've
yes.
just not fulfilled it. So I feel that my duty
yes.
is to help Jamaica to fulfill its true potential.
Right.
And I've dedicated my life to that.
Mm-hmm.
I started in politics at a very early age.
Mm-hmm.
When I was at university. When I left university, my first job was in social work.
Okay.
Having done a degree in management studies and economics, I decided to go and work in a city community with a voluntary organization. And that was to get the experience on the ground. It so happens that the former Prime Minister, former leader of the opposition, Edward Siaga, found me and invited me to work with him. And I spent several years with him, working as his personal assistant, working in his office and in his business, actually. And then at the age of 25, I decided to take on a constituency. It was a very difficult experience, can you imagine?
Is that the same constituency?
Same constituency. I'm representing that constituency now for more than 18 years.
Oh, wow.
And it was a landmark challenge, effectively. Because
were you the youngest youngest member of parliament?
I was the second youngest member of parliament at the time. Bruce Golding holds the record at 24, and I was just a few months older than he was at 25.
Okay. Now that's very interesting, and one of the reasons, Andrew, Minister Holness, Andrew Holness, why we brought you on the show was because the show is about inspiring, motivating, educational, entertaining, and we try to find that angle. And what we find about yourself, sir, is inspirational. Why? Because of the youth factor. There's always this youth factor element whereby we're seeing a lot of leaders, very elderly. Some people say actually they are calling certain houses in Jamaica the old age home. So that's by the way. But there's that element of you. And also...
Well, let's not dismiss age.
No, we're not dismissing
age. So age has the benefit of experience.
Yes.
And, they say that experience is the wickedest teacher.
Yes.
It sets the exam, and then it teaches you the lesson.
Yes.
So people who have age, they have gone through that.
Yes.
And people with youth, their job is to learn from people with experience.
But do you
people with experience also have a duty to mentor and guide those with youth. So if youth and age work together, you have an unbeatable combination.
So therefore there's got to be a balancing factor.
Yes.
And therefore those that are elderly must know when to step down as well.
As I said, those who are experienced must recognize that their role transitions.
Yes.
And that youth has energy, but youth needs guidance with experience. So there's different roles in the development process.
There was a few years ago, I was in Jamaica, and I wanted to meet you, and we met at a hotel briefly, and you took me to meet the Prime Minister of Jamaica. I never forget that day, because I look back at times and I realized you became the Prime Minister, and I remember when you introduced me to that Prime Minister then, and it was very interesting. And then after a while, being in the UK, of course, we follow what is happening in Jamaica. You became the youngest ever Prime Minister as well.
Yes.
That is correct. How was that experience?
Well, I've always felt that that was in my destiny, and that was my purpose of being. So I felt as if I was, fulfilling my destiny, but I have not fulfilled my mission as yet.
Right. Okay. It is safe to assume that you'll be standing in the next general election of Jamaica, which where constitutional is next year.
Next year, constitutional review.
What do you think are the greatest challenges facing Jamaica today, and what is your vision for overcoming these challenges for the country at large? That's Jamaica.
Jamaica faces several problems on a multidimensional level.
Yeah.
If you ask me from an economic perspective, our greatest problem is the lack of growth.
Yes.
But if you drill down into that, then we could say our greatest problem would be the high debt. If you drill further, then you would begin to say that we have a problem in the education system. We have a problem with crime and violence. And we have a problem with infrastructure and energy. So we have some really profound problems that require, I would say, innovative solutions, but it requires strong and visionary leadership as well.
That's very interesting. So therefore, with the current governance in Jamaica, what would you say are maybe their greatest, what should I say, shortfalls, and how would you, as the new Prime Minister, if you win, seek to address that?
Well, when
That
we
is if-
win,
yeah,
the first thing we'll do is tackle the growth problem.
yes,
I think the government has the strategy in reverse. But let me just back up a bit.
yes,
I think that the present government has an implementation deficit.
yes,
So they make grand announcements, but they don't do anything. That stems from a deeper problem in that they have a vision problem.
Right.
They lack vision, and they don't really have a big picture for Jamaica. They're moribund of ideas. But outside of that, they seem to have the growth strategy wrong.
yes,
So they believe that they have to tackle the debt problem before they can grow. The big difference with us is that we feel that we have to grow in order to tackle the debt problem.
right,
So there are two different approaches to the economic problem. So we agree, and we've always agreed, that debt is a major problem.
right,
But you're not going to solve the debt problem by putting in place austerity.
right,
The experience around the world is that austerity contracts your economy, and you may get stability, but it is not necessarily the case
Right.
that you will grow.
right,
You have to be instrumental, direct, deliberate, intentional in your pursuit of growth. So for us, it is growth that will help us to pay down the debt.
okay. In the UK, and just like last couple of weeks ago when you're in the diaspora big meeting there in Kensington, what was very crucial was hearing your vision for the diaspora. And so that Jamaicans living abroad here, many of them have been asking this question many times. How can we vote? We would like to vote. And I think this is something which has been saying for a long time. What if you become Prime Minister? How committed would you be to this goal and guarantee that you give those in the diaspora the right to vote? And logistically, your views in regards to that?
Well, I made the suggestion. I wasn't asked.
Yes.
I put it forward
Yes.
because I thought it was important to show a sign of commitment
Yes.
to the diaspora. Now, let's face it. The diaspora, whether it is in the UK, in the US, or in Canada, has its political alignments. Jamaica's political divide is strong,
Yes.
and people retain it when they leave Jamaica.
Yeah.
So, there are some people who will agree and some people who will disagree because of who made the suggestion.
Right.
So there is a large part of the diaspora who probably is not looking at the common sense of the idea,
Right.
but rather which party made it.
Right.
But then there are those who have liberated themselves of political bias and have come to look at ideas rather than personalities. And I think that giving the diaspora a say in Jamaica is a progressive move. Now, I find it, interesting that the UK would maintain a Commonwealth. And a Commonwealth is the transition out of empire.
Yes.
It's a way of maintaining British influence around the world by linking former British subjects with a common law,
Yeah.
a common system of bureaucracy, a common language. So for people in Britain and for former subjects of Britain, it's a commonwealth.
Right.
But Jamaica technically has the same.
How would-
There
yeah.
are Jamaicans who still maintain their culture,
Yes.
their way of speaking, and their way of life, even though they're resident here. Jamaica ought to tap into that
Yes.
as its commonwealth. And what we need to do as a sign of strengthening this diaspora, which should be really called our commonwealth,
Yes.
is to say, listen, we want you, members of the diaspora who have decided to move to another country, who have decided to invest in other countries to take back some of that wealth and root it in Jamaica. Not just the remittances to support the consumption of the families you left behind, but we want you, just as though you're moving to Spain or Portugal or even Ghana and owning second homes, I want you to come and own second homes in Jamaica. Just as how you would, go to visit Miami or San Francisco or Paris. I want you to come and visit Jamaica as tourists and spend there.
I want you to stick a point on that point.
So my point is,
yes.
for that to happen and for people to start thinking that it's not just remittances, it's investment.
Yes.
People need to feel that there is a voice representing the Jamaicans who have migrated, but who are still connected to the country.
The constituency, how would that work with a constituency level?
Well, Jamaicans in Jamaica would be a little bit cautious about having people who are not experiencing the problems there having a determination as to who the government should be.
Yes.
The truth is that there are as many Jamaicans living overseas than are in Jamaica.
Or even more, if anything,
But we get around this problem. The French have done it, the Italians have done it.
South Africans do a lot, yes.
Yeah. They assign one constituency to the diaspora. So that's just one voice in Parliament. It doesn't affect the balance either way.
Yeah.
But that person doesn't have to be a member of a political party. And in fact, you could write that into the Constitution, that they have to be independent. And they would be able to raise diaspora issues in the Parliament. If you look at what the Parliament is not just the platform for passing laws, it's the platform for debating policies.
So, Mr. Holness, so what you're saying then is you are mandated to, not maybe that it may happen in your term, but to fuel
start the ball
rolling.
Listen, if you still have your Jamaican citizenship,
I still do,
you can go back to Jamaica, prove that you've resided there for 2 years, and you can vote in the next election once you're enumerated.
Yes.
And there are many Jamaicans who come back and vote. So the idea of the diaspora voting is not new. They do so now.
But what we're talking about is that person who may be visiting from Jamaica to the UK for 6 months, and then a snap election is called. Wouldn't it be good if they could just go straight to the High Commission instead of cutting their holidays?
No, what I'm saying is, so they would be voting for a diaspora representative who would represent their issues in the House of Parliament. And it would be a good sign to say to the diaspora, we respect you enough to have you in our Parliament. I visited the UK and I got the complaints that there is an incredible amount of philanthropy in the UK and in the US and in Canada, people who want to help. My own uncle used to call me every summer to tell me he needs assistance in clearing a container of hospital supplies that he got here, free of cost, to donate to hospitals in Jamaica.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that was part one, and I'll go on straight into part two. But of course, as you can see, the whole issue of the diaspora voting is one which I flagged up again. And I've been flagging that discussion up from 2004, since I've been at the various diaspora conference, 2004, 2006. So it's an area which is still lurking there that needs to be dealt with. And, I think what I'll have to do, and I'm speaking to some guys, is to dissect this interview and to put it out to the prime minister's minders for sort of a part two, and for him to see this interview and somehow see if we can get a part two to follow up on what it is based on his engagement with the diaspora. Andrew, I'm the prime minister for a while. When he came here, and when I go to Jamaica, always meet up with him. I pride myself in not, when I'm in the UK, to be very independently minded politically. So therefore, I'm not deemed to be PNP or GLP, even brought up in a PNP home, but I possess a level of independent mind where I can be able to have discourse with political parties from both sides of the spectrum. And I think that is where we're at, because I think I saw an article today where the young people are saying the die-hard bit is over. The the garrison communities are over. What this election has also shown is that people are now thinking, and MPs will have to work as much as possible. But I'm going to go into part two now, and hope you enjoyed it. Please share this video as well. Of course, this is all on YouTube. Just to let you know, it's all on YouTube there because I've got tons of shows. If you want to check out my, just go on to SYLBOURNE TV. You'll be surprised to see some of the interviews that I've done. Prime ministers, ambassadors, young people, old persons, so Wade, um, you'd be surprised. It's a cross section of individuals, and I'm going all the way to the top in engaging with different persons because Black excellence is all over the place, ladies and gentlemen. And I've tapped into something very powerful where we don't have to go to BBC. As a matter of fact, I'm speaking to Barbara Blake Hannah. That's a lady who the BBC or the media house over here as giving an award for. Just spoke to her just a while ago, trying to get her on the show. Oh yes, I'm bringing her straight to us as well. BBC and those guys will give her 5 minutes, 3 seconds. We're gonna give her 1 hour to talk about what is it like. What was it like in the UK? What was it like leading the way for Trevor McDonald? What was it like in engaging race? What was it like when Enoch Paul wanted her to not to be at the studio when he came? What was it like? And when we learn these things and understand these things from our perspective, we are writing our history because we're getting it from the person who is the history or the historical figure. Think on that. I'm going to go back to Andrew Holness now. Okay, here we go.
What if you become Prime Minister? How committed would you be to this goal and guarantee that you give those in the diaspora the right to vote? And logistically, your views in regards to that?
Well, I made the suggestion. I wasn't asked.
Yes.
I put it forward.
Yes.
Because I thought it was important to show a sign of commitment to the diaspora.
Yeah.
If you still have your Jamaican citizenship,
I still do.
Can go back to Jamaica, prove that you've resided there for 2 years, and you can vote in the next election.
Yeah.
Do you want a hassle-free experience to buy, build or sell a property in the Caribbean? Perhaps you want a similar experience to deal with another type of property matter in this beautiful part of the world. Whatever your property matter in the Caribbean may be, Tropical Connections will ensure that your experience is one that you'll remember for all the right reasons.
One of the criticism which comes a lot from Jamaicans here in the diaspora is at times the lack of help and assistance they get from the government when contributing to services to help Jamaica. Example, shipping of donated school equipment and resources from Britain to Jamaica. What would your government do if in power to help address these problems, which is also a key factor?
I'm asked this question a lot. What would your government do?
Yeah.
And I must tell you, it's a little bit frustrating because I find that people don't research. In the information age, incredibly, people don't have a lot of information. And in a sense, we're to be blamed because you find that you have to keep repeating things over and over again for people to say, oh, okay, that's
Right.
it.
It's there.
It's there. When I was a Minister of Education, I visited the UK and I got the complaints that there is an incredible amount of philanthropy in the UK and in the US and in Canada, people who want to help. My own uncle used to call me every summer to tell me he needs assistance in clearing a container of hospital supplies that he got here, free of cost, to donate to hospitals in Jamaica. And it struck me that there was no attempt by the government to coordinate and synergize the level of philanthropy that existed in the diaspora. And we established in the Ministry of Education, because the greatest philanthropy in the diaspora existed for education. The the Old Boys Association, the past students, the alumni associations, they represent the most organized set of philanthropic endeavor in the diaspora.
Yes.
And so what I decided to do was to establish something called the National Education Trust. And what that was designed to do was to organize giving in the diaspora. Because whilst my uncle was getting beds and machines for CT scans and all kinds of things,
Jamaica,
it may not be what the hospitals
right.
needed. And it may not be the equipment that fit the purpose in Jamaica. And we found this, that there were many organizations sending computers. And within a month or so, those are obsolete.
Obsolete, yes.
So the idea was that we would do the inventory. And we would create an information exchange, whether it is through a website or whatever it is. And we would then ask all the philanthropic groups to register.
Yes.
And we would say, here's a list of things, you choose what you would want. Then, so the coordination of it would be under the National Education Trust. And then we would make giving easy. I've heard so many stories, so many sad stories about people giving, wanting to give, and the government almost refusing to take. I was in Washington recently, and a lady told me that she went out of her way, spent several thousands of US dollars to acquire a mobile lab. And all she needed from the government of Jamaica was a letter to say, we will accept this thing. And she couldn't get it. And she ended up having to give it away to another country because we were slow in moving. So we wanted to make giving easier. Right? And then we wanted to make giving accountable. Because another problem is a lot of stuff gets sent to Jamaica and a lot of money gets sent to Jamaica, but it doesn't necessarily get used for the purpose.
Right.
And so we would want to say to those who give, okay, give the money to the trust. And the trust will make sure that it gets to the purpose.
So are you saying that is not happening now?
We have established a National Education Trust, but the present government is using it for a totally different purpose.
Right. Okay. Good. Let's talk about the man behind the politics now. A man from humble background, what would you say inspired you, even though you said it before, to become a politician? What would you say is the key factor? You said it briefly, but I want to target it straight there.
I was born in 1972. 1972 is the year that Michael Manley won the elections. And Michael Manley was an inspiring figure for many Jamaicans. This was the post-colonial era, but it was also the post-independence era. And so Michael Manley represented the hopes and ambitions of an emerging nation trying to find itself on the world stage. But it could not escape the context of global politics. Jamaica is a small state. And I grew up in the turbulent context of an undeclared civil war leading up to the 1980 elections, which haunted us throughout the 90s. And we still have the remnants in violence that existed as a result of the total breakdown of the economy and the society. And whilst I respected what Michael Manley was trying to achieve in terms of the political exertion of independence, I was drawn to the argument of Edward Seaga that it takes economic success to truly display your independence, to truly exercise independence.
Or it takes cash to care.
Well, I think in the way in which it's said, it's totally misconstrued. But the deeper, profound meaning of it is that if you look at the route that Singapore took, and Singapore has a similar colonial background, except it didn't have slavery. And it's not as long and deep in the colonial history. But the truth is, it was a colony. And in the 1960s, we started out at the same level of gross national product per capita. And now Singapore is about $55,000 US GNP per capita. Jamaica is 5,000
Wow.
GNP per capita. What accounted for that? What accounted for that was that Singapore took a more practical approach to achieving its political independence than did Jamaica.
Yeah.
So the struggle is still there about who we are as a people.
Yeah.
Jamaica does exert significant influence on world affairs and world culture. We've been doing that
Yeah.
for centuries. But Jamaica now needs to fulfill its true potential as an economic powerhouse. Jamaica must make it a real mission to end poverty in its shores. I was watching CNN recently,
Yes.
and they were doing a documentary on a U.S. Ship. It's a medical facility
Yeah.
that visits countries all over the world,
yeah.
and they came to Jamaica and they treated over 10,000 patients. An amazing facility. But when I flipped the channel, there was also another documentary on Singapore. And when you look at just the juxtaposition of Jamaica and Singapore,
Yeah.
Singapore is now considering, building an entirely new city.
Yeah.
And they see building a city as a means of driving growth and accommodating the expansion. Singapore is the size of the parish of St. James.
Right. So therefore, what you're saying is that.
But Jamaica, we
Yeah.
put the idea of a new city, and people who should know better say, what is that going to do?
Yeah.
There is really a kind of lack of vision. And people have been just under the pall of economic depression for so long, and that they don't want to dream anymore. I mean, effectively, what you get is, listen, don't come to me about any dreams or visions. And they keep asking you when you say, we're going to grow. Grow what? Do what? What are you going to do?
Right.
Come to me with solutions. And then when we do come and we in Parliament and we lay out all the solutions, they don't see it. So my point is that there is a sense of frustration in Jamaica that has just prevented people from saying, let's dream again. Let's try and do it again one more time. But that is dangerous.
Are you saying people are not inspired?
I think there is a general level of skepticism and disbelief.
I don't think anything positive coming through.
Precisely.
To them, they'll say,
Yeah.
right. No, that's very interesting.
But that's dangerous.
Yeah.
It's dangerous for democracy. And the studies that have been done on the democracy are showing that people are getting very frustrated with democracy as a means of delivering
Right.
economic growth and development. And they're very frustrated with their politicians. So what is creeping into the politics more and more is people are asking to be paid to vote.
Right.
Once that is happening, people are saying, I am not going to take a promise and I'm not going to buy into a vision to vote. Just pay me to vote.
Right.
That's dangerous.
That's very unfortunate, but I'm sure with your leadership that will be addressed.
Well, that's the whole idea. That's why I'm here.
Now, back to the same gentleman and what is behind you. There's been few controversy and criticism, and the JLP suffered a landslide defeat. How does one recover from such drawbacks on a political, professional level, but also on a personal level? Because, as I said, to find out what is that driving force and that determination within it.
The strength of a true politician is not that he won't be knocked down, it's that he gets up back and he fights again. And I think if you look at my career, I've been knocked down a few times, but I get back up, I brush myself off, and I keep pushing. I don't give up. I keep fighting, and the worst thing you could do is tell me that I can't. In fact, I like to prove people wrong.
Yes.
And I do try my best to keep on the right track. I'm not infallible. I will make mistakes.
Yes.
But I think my heart is in the right place, and I'm convinced of what my mission is.
Now, for persons now in the diaspora wanting to get involved in Jamaican politics back in Jamaica, what word of advice would you give them? They are in the diaspora, they're in the UK, they're in Canada, and they're looking and they're saying...
Well, I say, Sidiel, the first thing you need to do is come back to Jamaica. and then you need to send an application into the Jamaica Labour Party.
Well, what can I say? That has switched things up slightly bit for me. Okay, that answered the question right there. I guess what that is saying is put your foot into the water,
come
and
back
do it.
home.
Yeah. Okay. Bear in mind. Okay. What is the key words or mantra or quotes that you live by? You know, there's always something that resonates. Those rocky moments, those down moments. What are those words of inspiration? What's the mantra that you live by?
Well, as I said, never give up.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in the economic independence of the country because that is the true expression of political independence. No man is an island, and I believe in the team and the teamwork.
Yes.
But I also believe in God and the divine direction that He gives. So, you know, in the lowest of times, in the most difficult times, which I have faced, and I'm certain that every politician would face it, you recognize that you're only a man and you have to get down on your knees and ask for divine guidance, protection, and inspiration. So, you know, I do believe that no weapon formed against me shall prosper. And I don't believe in, you know, wishing evil on anyone and to never do anything to harm anyone, but to be graceful, to turn the other cheek sometime, to bear and grin.
Good.
Because the Beatitudes really form part of my own personal. In fact, you know, Mother Teresa,
Yes.
for me, she's a saint.
Yes.
And she paraphrased what is called the Paradoxical Commandments. And I draw for it in times of despair and distress. I have it, actually, I have it right here. And I thought I'd leave it with you because you may find it useful as well. It says, people are illogical, unreasonable, and self-centered. Love them anyway.
Okay.
If you do good, people will accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives, but you do good anyway.
Okay.
If you're successful, you will win false friends and true enemies. Succeed anyway. The good you do today will be forgotten tomorrow. Do good anyway. Honesty and frankness make you vulnerable. Be honest and frank anyway. The biggest men and women with the biggest ideas can be shut down by the smallest men and women with the smallest minds. Think big anyway. People find favor. People favor underdogs, but follow only top dogs. Fight for a few underdogs anyway. What you spend years building may be destroyed overnight.
Wow.
Build anyway.
Keep building.
Keep building.
Keep building. Heard that. Keep building.
People really need help, but may attack you if you do help them. Help people anyway. Give the world the best you have, and you will get kicked in the teeth. Give the world the best you have anyway.
Andrew Holness, I want to thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
And it was a pleasure and it's an honor for you to give us your quality time.
Patrick Linton Allen, Governor General of Jamaica, in exercise of the power conferred on me by subsection 1 of section 70 of the Constitution of Jamaica, do hereby appoint you, being a member of the House of Representatives, to be Prime Minister.
I, Andrew Michael Holness, do solemnly, sincerely, and truly declare and affirm that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Jamaica, that I will uphold and defend the Constitution and the laws of Jamaica, and that I will conscientiously and impartially discharge my responsibility to the people of Jamaica. I pledge to serve the people of Jamaica faithfully, with all my energies, all my heart, mind, and soul.